Now it's time to move to our Q&A. First question is actually for you, Werner. What are your thoughts on these results?
Thank you, Tabiso. I think firstly it's important to look at the results through two lenses. Obviously, the first one is the once-off adjustments that we've taken, and we take full accountability for that, and we've obviously taken a lot of actions to do our best to ensure that that doesn't happen again. Secondly, if I then look at the business and the adjusted continued operations outside of that, I think a 19% revenue growth, an 11% EBITDA growth, and significant increases in cash really represents a resilient performance in what I would say are probably the toughest trading conditions that I've experienced as a manager. I really think that speaks to the strong nature of our value proposition as well as our annuity base. What's particularly pleasing for me is the fact that we've got a very strong balance sheet and we can use that to really invest in our strategy for growth and to become the leading platform and IT services player. If I look at our business overall, I think it would be remiss of me not to point out that we got some superstar performances. You know, FinTech had another really strong year. Health Tech continues to deliver great earnings, high EBITDA levels, generates a lot of cash, and ROIC north of 80%. Security has exceeded our expectations, and we've had really good performances and turnarounds in our Carabiner business, in our Arrow business, as well as in managed solutions. We've acknowledged that we've got some challenges in Netstar and ASI. We've got clear profit improvement strategies in place, and the early indicators in those strategy turnarounds are quite positive for us. So overall, I think a really resilient performance in tough trading conditions that speaks to the strength of our business, our operating model, and we really now have got a strong balance sheet and we're poised for growth going forward and really executing on our strategy.
Thank you, Werner. The second question is, in respect of the COT and the GBN, this is a massive loss. So a number of questions. Management received bonuses last year. Does the company intend to reclaim bonuses that should have been paid? Second is, why was this not picked up last year or at the interims? And then going forward, will the group continue to seek government and local government work?
Thanks, Toby. So quite a lot of questions. Let me try and answer them. Look, firstly, I think it's important to unpack the compelling events that led to us taking these provisions. And there were two compelling events. Number one really was the audit that the AG did in, I think it was end of 2022, where they had an adverse finding against the, expressing some concerns with regards to the financials of the city of Tshwane. As we went through the process, now going through our year-end results, even though, as I said in my presentation earlier on, that we're very clear that we're on the right side of the law here and we're working quite hard to progress that, we went through an exhaustive consultation process with our auditors and we did an assessment and we decided to make these provisions in line with that adverse finding. So I think that's the first thing. The second compelling event really was, I think it was around about March this year. We've held that broadband contract for about 10 years. And at that point in time, we were given the notice that unfortunately somebody else has been awarded that contract. So I think we've got to see it in that context, that there were two specific compelling events that really then had us to look at this. Obviously, as management, we take accountability for this, and we're really working hard to make sure, we do have slightly higher than usual inventory levels in our business, as a result of COVID, some of the supply chain constraints that we had, and we're working that down, and we're focusing and working very hard on management to ensure that we get our working capital management levels down. With regards to doing business with the public sector, I think it's very important that we do business with public sector. At any given point in time, we probably do between 10 and 15% of our business. For me, it's really important that you run any business on sound business principles, whether that's with public sector or whether that is with private sector. You've got to make sure that you've got sound contracting principles, sound commercial principles, and then ongoing management of those contracts. I'd love to, as a CEO, I'd love to tell people that we don't have any surprises going forward, and I've indicated that we're working hard to ensure that we're on top of any issues in our business at any given point in time. But I think the nature of particularly the technology industry, you can never say that for sure, but obviously we're focused to make sure that we continue to deliver good results.
Thank you, Werner. Next question. What does transformative growth through data mean for the Altron Group?
Tabiso? If you don't mind, I'm going to take that one again because it's something that I think as a leadership team we were very excited about. So let me just firstly, before I answer the question, and I'd like to give you maybe a practical example of that, because I think there's a lot of buzz out there about big data and how do you turn that data into actionable insights. First thing that I want to express is that as a group, we exercise extreme diligence in terms of securing data and also making sure that we comply to all the relevant legislation when it comes to data governance. Now, let's talk about our health tech business. If we look at that business, there's an extraordinary amount. I think it's something like 100 million transactions that goes through that business on an annual basis. Now, what we're looking at is how can we overlay that information with geospatial data? Now, what does that give us? That gives us a very clear view on diseases per suburb, per city in South Africa. Now, the question is, and our focus is, can we turn that information into actionable insights so that we can really move from a more reactive approach to health management to a proactive approach to health management. And in doing that, we can potentially alleviate the burden of disease. We can give a much better outcome for customers, we can give a much better outcome for doctors and for patients, and we can also potentially work and are currently launching a pilot with retail pharmaceutical companies to ensure that they keep their stock levels at optimum levels whilst making sure understanding the specific disease burden in a specific suburb, that they can meet the needs of patients when they go for the dispensing of medicine after their doctor visit. So I think I can probably rattle on about this for a really long time, but that is something that we are doing right now and that we're very excited about.
Thanks, Werner. Netstar hasn't performed in line with expectations in the past. Why will this new strategy be any different?
So again, we fully recognize that Netstar hasn't performed in line with our expectations. As I mentioned earlier, and I think Grant, since he's been appointed, has taken you also in the presentation through what we're planning to do. We have got a very clear profit improvement plan in place. I've got a lot of faith in the focus we got in the business and in Grant and his leadership team. As Grant took you through early on, 5 months into the job, the early leading indicators of some of the key focus areas are starting to head in the right direction. I think having said that, we also have to understand that nothing happens overnight. So it will take a while. It's probably taken us 4 or 5 years to get to this point, but I'm really particularly excited about this business, and I'm also doing the best I can, rolling up my sleeves, working with Grant and the leadership team to not only restore Netstar to its former glory, but to make sure that we actually lead this space in the market.
Thanks, Werner. Next question. Why do we believe that Karoo carries a better rating than Netstar? And how do we close this gap?
Tabiso, firstly, Karoo is an outstanding company. They've got a very good track record, and they're a formidable competitor. Having said that, we will be focusing on what we can control. And I think Grant touched on that early on. For us, really, the focus is on making sure that we execute on our profit improvement strategy. And there are 4 particular areas there. Firstly, as with a group, the center of all of that is to deliver customer obsession, really make sure we deliver outstanding service to our customers. And if we do that, we can really focus on reclaiming our market share in the consumer market. We really want to grow in the enterprise market and the fleet market, really through some of the differentiated fleet offerings that we are now launching. Big focus on our big data as a service offering, some of the new solutions that we've already brought to market. And then, of course, lastly, there's some basics. You've got to address some of the cost inefficiencies in the business that have led to those results.
Thank you, Werner. Well done on bringing fresh impetus to Altron and delivering a clear strategy. What is the prognosis for selling the African operations, which are material loss makers? Are you pricing correctly as ASI generated good revenue growth but losses? Is this the end of write-downs, which have been a recurring theme of Altron over the years? Is the accounting policy of capitalizing Netstar devices correct, which skews the cash flow statements? Shouldn't these be expensed to a far greater extent? Another long question for you.
Sure, okay, that's quite a mouthful. Let me try and unpack that for you. I think firstly, I think I've responded to the write-downs question, right? let me maybe just talk to the Netstar. We are looking at and we're working with our auditors on the accounting policy of Netstar devices. And once we've made that decision, we will obviously communicate that to the market. I would certainly like to think that we are bringing some fresh impetus to Altron, and I mentioned earlier on that as a leadership team, after a period of divestitures, we are now very, very much focused on leveraging our healthy balance sheet for some growth going forward. In terms of our African operations, just to remind you, that does sit in discontinued operations, and with the exception of just one business, most of those businesses, the sale process has been completed already, so you won't be seeing that in our business going forward. Interesting question with regards to ASI. If I understand the question correctly, I think it is, are we pricing correctly in the market because we're generating good revenue, but we're getting losses? Yeah, I think we are pricing correctly in the market. That is evidenced through the good revenue growth. I referred earlier in my operational update to an early leading indicator which says that, I think our weighted pipeline, our qualified pipeline is up about 61% year on year, and that wouldn't be the case if we're not pricing incorrectly. Some of the challenges in that business really is around our margins, and I spoke about how we intend to address our margins, particularly in the workforce management, the infrastructure, and the software development business by really driving that to scale. And we've already taken action to address our cost base, the run rate savings of which we'll start to see in FY24.
Thank you, Werner. Next question. What other assets are you looking to exit from? What will Altron look like in 5 to 10 years' time?
You want me to get out my crystal ball here, Tabiso? Look, I think in this rapidly evolving technology landscape that we are in, I think it's fairly difficult to say what any given business will be like, particularly 10 years' time. Our planning horizon, the strategy that I spoke to, really considers the next 3 to 5 years. At this point in time, besides the assets that are currently held for sale, we're comfortable with the portfolio of assets that we've got. We feel that is the assets that really give us this advantage that I spoke to earlier on in terms of differentiating us, taking our customers on that journey. So at this point in time, besides the stuff that's already held for sale, we're not significantly looking to sell off any other assets. What would I like Altron to look like 5 years from now? I think if you go back to our opening statement and our strategy, I would really like our customers to be saying that we absolutely are a trusted partner to them in their digital transformation journey. I'd like our customers to be very happy with the service we would give them, and of course I would like to be delivering significant returns to our shareholders whilst making sure that we're a responsible corporate citizen. And let's never forget the 5,000 odd people that we employ. I'd like to grow employment. I'd like to make sure that they're happy and motivated employees. So if you want to know what my dream was 5 years from now, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an indication.
Thanks, Werner. The Netstar Toyota partnership is adding subscribers, but Netstar EBITDA is growing at a pedestrian rate. Is Netstar planning on entering partnerships with OEMs other than Toyota? If so, how will these partnerships be structured to avoid adding low-margin subscribers?
Thanks, Tabiso. I wouldn't like to, in a public forum, address our structuring around low margins. I kind of feel we don't want to be talking about commercial terms in specific contracts with specific customers, other than to say, of course, understanding what our margin profile looks like today, we'll be making sure that any deals we do are margin accretive. Of course, we would be looking on entering partnerships with other OEMs, and we would also be looking at doing so in other geographies, but I don't think we should give all of our secrets away at this point in time.
Thank you, Werner. Quite a mouthful of questions we had this morning.
It's good. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a pleasure presenting to you today, and we look forward to seeing you again at half year.